All right. Hey guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, Taylor.
It's
Hi,
good.
Krista.
Hi, Leith. Hey, Taylor. How's it going this week?
Moving along. I think
Actually, I think a little bit smoother this week, maybe.
And we're halfway through the week. Wednesdays are always really great days, aren't they?
Hmm.
I agree. It's like it's that much closer to Friday. But yeah, it does feel like maybe towards the end of last week and this week is like slightly smoother, like the air is clear. We're getting used to Zoom links and
Yeah.
Hmm.
You
stuff like
might not hear it, folks, but I am knocking on wood and crossing my fingers.
I'm
that.
right there with you.
Yeah. So
Uh,
today is a follow-up to last week about picking battles, right? Last week, I know whoops, um, we helped parents and talked about figuring out which battle to pick and talked about the communication piece. And now it's like, all right, we figured out the battle to pick. Where do we go from here? What's the next step?
I think something that's really important, and some of the things that we're talking about are really, really hard for adults and parents to do. I always really like being clear, being concise with the expectations, and doing that before a moment happens. Because you're struggling with a student and they've got some really big behaviors, whatever they may be, it can heighten you up also. And then if you're talking during those moments, you're maybe speaking out of having big feelings yourself, and it doesn't always go well. So being concise with your expectations before a moment happens can be really helpful, and being very clear and sticking with what you say.
hmm And I would think even before that, and just thinking about some of the students I worked with, sometimes it's easier once you have those in your head to kind of preload some of those for your student. So for your child, for your student. So we're going into our Zoom meeting now. Remember this, do you remember what the expectations are and what we're going to have to do if you're struggling or something like that, so that the student already knows what to expect as well, so that when you react in the way you need to and you've made clear that it doesn't throw them off, they know what to expect as well.
Right. So I know that one of the things we talked about is how to choose your battles. So going on that notion, Leith, if a
Mhm.
student were to, let's say they're struggling with keeping their camera on, or the teacher's asking, or they're just struggling with even being in their Zoom lesson the whole time that they're expected, and they start having a meltdown or start crying, is that a battle that is worth kind of engaging in, or what, we
Oh,
should
in my
talk
opinion,
Mhm.
I think in that moment, kids' behavior has a function, right? So it's telling us something. So in that moment, your child is telling you, I can't do this right now. I'm having a hard time doing this. So even if as a parent, you're watching this and you're going, oh, they're on Zoom and the teacher's watching and the rest of the class is watching and oh, there's other parents there. I think in that moment, like you said, pick your battles. The battle right now, the priority is to get your child back in a place where they can do class, right? So I think the priority then is to say, hey, can we take a break? And then maybe give yourself a break, give your child a break, ask the teacher if you could turn off the video, maybe even the audio on it, and maybe take 5 minutes away and give yourself a break from it, give your child a break from it, ask them what they need in that moment. Food's a great way to change their state, getting a drink of water, getting up and walking away and walking back. But I think in that moment, the focus should be on, oh, they're not able to do their Zoom. How can I help them do this?
Mhm.
And I think telling them they have to do this, it's like having somebody come out and say, calm down. Why can't you just calm down?
Right.
Right? And does that help you calm down? No.
Yeah, I know it's kind of like I guess an example I always say is that if the kid's going up and you go up with them, you're going to be like a tornado spinning at the same time. But sometimes when kids go up, if you come really down and just have a very quiet place, they're going to come down on a more natural progression. They can de-escalate sooner.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it's hard to do that. It's hard to not engage in that battle, but at the end of the day, the adults are the adults, and the kids, I try not to engage in a battle with my kids. So
Yeah, a lot of this reminds me of stuff that we did and stuff that I would train the staff at when I was at the group home, because so much of it is behavioral when you're working with kids in foster care because of the trauma and stuff like that. But the one thing or the few things that I would tell them, and one of them was, don't make a change without letting the kids know. Because so often in the group home setting and in every setting, we might change something in our mind, or I might talk to one of the staff about something. And so in our mind, it's good. We're doing this, this, and this. But that kid has no idea. And so you can't hold this kid to this standard without talking to them first.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always tell them the best time to talk to kids about any of those changes is when they're in a good mood. Don't wait till, I use like video games as like I think an ongoing battle with parents or screen time in general. Screen time in general. Whoa. But got some. Okay, I think we're good. But don't wait till Johnny is like engrossed in his video game and you pull the cord to have that talk with him about, oh yeah, by the way, we're reducing screen time. Talk to him when he's mellow, eating dinner, or doing something like that. And everyone's going to be more receptive to change when they're in a good mood and they're not in that heightened state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that really speaks to what I was saying. Like, first of all, kids aren't mind readers, neither are adults, but you have to be really consistent with your expectations and the boundaries and, consequences and rewards also. And talking to them when they're in a calm place and when you're in a calm place, sometimes, adults, we need to have that walk away or that breathing tool ourselves. I try really hard to not engage when they're at their worst, because usually I'd be frustrated or have big feelings with that. And I don't always, there's nothing worse than not being consistent with what you say you're going to do. I also believe in praise. Praise your child or students when they can log on successfully. Praise them when they're turning in their work. Acknowledge what they're doing well also. That's a really big piece of what we want to help them be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we use in our classroom, we use thank you for XXX, just as kind of a way of reinforcing that, oh, thanks for turning on your camera if we've asked them to turn on their camera. Thanks for chiming in on that. Oh, great job in really pushing yourself and doing that. So we say thank you a lot to acknowledge that they're complying and meeting the expectations, because it's an acknowledgement for them. It's a positive reinforcement. So they're going to say, oh, okay, so that's what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I want to really notice. So I do spend a lot of time saying, I notice that you are, and I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. And I think about it with my own behavior, where, how easily, if I'm positively reinforced for something, I just naturally do it more.
Mm-hmm.
If this one route to work is 2 minutes faster, then I'm positively reinforced because I'm getting to work earlier, so I'm going to keep doing it. Or if, my person really likes X, Y, and Z, then it's like, and they appreciate it, then, oh, cool, then I'm going to keep doing that. That seems like it's good,
Mm-hmm.
And I think kids are probably even more so that, incentivized by that positive reinforcement, because they're figuring out who they are. And especially right now, we don't get a lot of positive reinforcement via Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like in real life, I could even walk by a kiddo and just give him a little fist bump, or pat him on the head or something like that. And now you don't get those little tiny, sort of like little micro praises. That's not even a word, but
it works.
But we got it. We totally got it. I also think that there's also the challenges of there isn't a clear separation for most families between home and school. It's become one place. So where they used to get that little bit of a break from both spaces, that can look different now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a challenge in itself. It's funny because when you were using the analogy, Taylor, of having two paths to get to work, I was thinking of the longer path being the reward, because I could listen to my music as I was driving a little bit further to get to school. Still on time though. But it's kind of a good way of thinking how kids can perceive what their positive reinforcement is with whichever path they choose.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, and that's a great point, because what a parent might perceive as a positive reinforcement is not necessarily what a kid would perceive as a positive reinforcement. And I think a while ago we touched on the love languages.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that kid is all about quality time, And if that parent says, hey, we're going to go for a drive, they're stoked on it. But if that parent is a really like a gift kind of person, they might give the kid something and they're like, cool, I don't, whatever. When are we going for a drive, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's a really, really good point.
I wonder if maybe we could take a couple minutes, because I know that just talking to a lot of parents, the getting kids off of screens and video games is a big battle that I've gotten the sense from some parents that they're like, I would like to fight that battle, but I cannot. What are some things that would help parents, fight that battle and stick with it?
Well, I go back to asking, like, it's going to be different for every situation, but first of all, the adults in the home have to be clear on what they are in agreement with, because there's nothing worse than them not being clear, because you're going to have support from whoever's in the home, right? So be clear on what you come to an agreement with, and then just roll it out. And you can use that as real leverage, parents. I mean, you can help your kids achieve more screen time. You can have a starting place, and then they can earn more if they're successful with their Zoom day and their school day. Or it could be that, you just give them from this time to this time. The thing that we have to be cognizant of, in my opinion, is that every family and every situation is different. And I know a common way of kids connecting with each other is often through their video games or social media, a safe one for kids, of course, but that's how they're finding it to be able to connect with their peers, and I don't see that always as bad.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I would start with, this is, you set your boundaries. So, and there has to be a little bit of room for compromise, and it has to be consistent. I think that's one of the biggest things, is if you're consistent, you're going to have less butting of heads over those boundaries. At the beginning, you might have to be a little more firm, but once it becomes a habit, then it becomes easier. So the consistency piece is good. So you have to be able to say, no, this is our discussion. This is what we agreed upon. It's, it's time to take a break. We're going, we said no screens during dinner time. Maybe start with something as easy as that, because there's another, you never take away a behavior without putting one in, right? Because then there's a vacuum and something's going to rush in to fill that. So if you're going to cut back on that screen time, you have to find an alternative activity for them to be doing. And it could be something as easy as, hey, we're really going to make an effort to sit down as a family at dinner time together. And we're just going to say, for those 30, 45 minutes, no screens, no phones. Look, I'm putting mine over here. I'm turning it off and putting it over here, and TV's off and everything else. We're just going to sit and have dinner and talk. And it could be just starting along those lines. And then once that becomes a habit and the kids are like, well, this is pretty cool, then you maybe add on to that. Like, okay, so after dinner tonight, we're going to, I don't know, do a puzzle together, or play a card game or something along those lines, or take a walk. And add on to it from there, and start simple and add on to it after that. Don't go from 100 to 0, because that won't work.
Yeah.
And I think first of all, when you say have an agreement, you got to know adults, kids are not always going to agree, but this is where parenting, the hard stuff comes in. The adults in the home have an agreement, and then you're going to roll that out to your kids in the home. We have periods of time in the day that we call it unplugging. We all unplug from whatever electronic device we're on, so we can actually share that space together. And it becomes really great. I mean, we resisted it at first. I have to say, it was really a challenge for even the adults in the day, because sometimes at the end of our work day is when we actually have a chance to kind of go on and to do it ourselves. But I don't know. I think it's really nice to unplug from electronics.
I agree. I think it's something that it's much more concrete when parents do it along with kids. And so it's really tough when, if parents are doing social media and things online, but they don't want their kids to do it. So I think, if possible, if parents can reduce along with kids, it's super important. But yeah, I'm with you. I think small steps are really important too. Making sure that you're not going from, kids that are literally spending an additional 4 or 5 hours on screens at the end of the day. You can't go from 4 or 5 hours to 0. And so it's a reduction, not, elimination. And I think a lot of families have to expect kids to just go full gas and pull out all of the stops, yelling, screaming, going crazy, because it's very like central to who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and this is where, Parenting 101 comes in, because you guys are stronger than that. I mean, it is tough. It is tough. It is tough. But we all know how we feel when we're asked to put down our devices, right? It can be a real struggle. But this is where, you're strong enough to do it and resilient, and you're going to teach your kids some really valuable things. And I get it. I mean, I get how this can be the good old babysitter sometimes. And sometimes you just want to come home from work, take off your own shoes, and have your own space and time. And when your child's engaged in a video game, it kind of can be an easier solution. And I get, this is a non-judgmental chat with the counselors today, because we all get it ourselves.
Well, and there is nothing wrong with building that in.
That's right.
So
for me,
we all need that time. So when mom gets home, you get 30 minutes, I get 30 minutes, but then after that 30 minutes, then we're going to come back together and fix dinner or do whatever it is.
For me, it's a really cool thought when you think about it, because you can have this framework of like, from this time to this time, you've got it. If your day is successful, you can build upon that, but you can also remove some too. It's going to be according to what their behavior, like you said, their behavior is telling us a story. So maybe they need more, maybe they know less, but kids don't know themselves what they need. Mm-hmm. You guys, I have to get going, so I'm going to unzoom myself right now.
Bye, Krista.
Bye, Chris.
Have a good day.
Have a good week.
Thanks. You too. You too. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I think one other thing that I've noticed with video games in particular is social media, is that sort of like the locus of control. Where's the control coming from? And I think for a lot of kids, the device is in control. And once they're on it until literally like a parent can pull them off, or it becomes a battle every time just to get them off. Mm-hmm. And I think the goal is for parents to maintain that control, to be able to set the boundaries of when they're on, when they're off, and not let the kid set the boundaries, not let the game set the boundaries, because the games are designed to keep you on. Social media is designed to keep you on. And so, for parents, you're not just battling your kiddo wanting to do that. You're battling this device that's engineered to keep them on.
Keep them sucked in and keep them on that medium. Yeah, I agree. So like I said, maybe you can come to you can't take it all away all at once, because one, we have to acknowledge devices and all of that are part of the world. Yeah. So really, I think that the switch in mindset needs to be, how do we teach our children? This is what's hard for us, is how do we teach our children how to use it when they need it, and how to use it responsibly, and how to be able to unplug in a manner that they're able to do it for themselves. Yeah. And it is hard, because as adults, we didn't grow up with this, right? Mm-hmm. So we're having to teach them skills that we're just learning ourselves. And that can be difficult sometimes, but our job is to really teach them those skills of how to navigate that part of the world safely and in a responsible manner, as opposed, like you said, just getting sucked in, being on there for 4 or 5 hours a day. Yeah. What I know with my middle schoolers a lot is, if we just have the conversation about how much time are you really on your device? How much time do you really spend doing this? What are some of the things you'd rather be doing instead? And they start actually thinking about it. With the older students, they're actually able to think about, wait a second, this is a time waste, right? Maybe I do have the power to be able to turn it off for, a few hours and go do something else. So I think with some older students, just having the conversation can help spark a change in some of those habits.
Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of it goes back to making sure that you're replacing that, and looking at it like, what's the base need that video game or social media is meeting? And right now, a lot of it is relational. I mean, that's kind of the primary thing that kids are doing on video games and with social media. And so if there's a way to supplement that, is there something else that they can do, or that parents can support, that gives them that same sense of connection, or a real connection as opposed to a screen connection.
Screen connection, right. I was going to say, I think that one of the things that you and I have talked a lot about the past few weeks has been that need for that social connection for our students in the middle schools, right?
Yeah.
And how can we facilitate that? And granted, a lot of what we're having to do right now is on the screen, which is a little frustrating because it's our way to be able to reach out to them, but being able to set up situations where they can be more social with each other and build those social connections so that when the time comes that we are back on campuses, they've developed those relationships and have that ebb and flow that middle schoolers have to have in their peer relationships. Mm-hmm. So maybe, for our kiddos and at the middle schools, and I'm sure there are other counselors doing this at their schools as well, maybe looking into some of those extra times of just being able to socialize and get together with the clubs and things like that.
The open lunch groups, I think they're on...
I do mine on Thursdays.
Yeah, mine are on Tuesday and Thursdays. I think for parents to connect with the counselor or whatever site your kiddos are at, because I know all of them are having some type of like open thing like that, facilitate that connection.
Right. I think that's really important because those skills will translate into what happens when we return to campus.
Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest thing I've said to parents a lot of the time is, stay the course. Like you're on the right track, even though it doesn't feel like it sometimes. Keep doing what you're doing. And, if your gut says that it's time to pull back on the screens or the video games or whatever battle they're fighting, if that's what your gut instinct says and you talk to your person or the other person involved or people involved and you all agree, stick with it, and I think that's one of the hardest things is just stay in the course.
It is. Well, that's the hardest thing as a parent is being that consistent because you don't want to see your child disappointed. You don't want to see your child sad. You don't want them to be mad or angry with you in that. But you as the adult, you kind of have to say in the long run, they're going to be happier for this.
Yeah.
They're going to be able to do better because they know how to do this. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to grit your teeth and pull yourself in and say, no, I said 30 minutes is going to be 30 minutes. Or no, we said we all agreed we're going to turn off for dinner time, not 5 more minutes. We need to turn it off now. And look, I'm turning off the internet now. There's a lot of tools out there, parents, that puts you in control of that as well. So you might want to look into those. If you're having, that way it's out of your control, out of their control, your control. You can just say, yeah, it goes off at this time and it won't go back on until 8:00 tonight for an hour.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else you want to throw in there? I feel like we've been going for a while on this one.
I think we've been going for a while. Yeah. We'll let the parents get back to parenting.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks, Leith. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Have a great rest of your week.
You too. Bye.
Bye.